Guess we'll get started today. I'm Jeff Kirby. I'm sort of the Enshin representative from Halifax today because the rest of the team is out and abroad with ethics, with an ethics workshop in Kentville, I believe. It's my great pleasure to introduce David Burke to you. He's a highly valued ethics colleague of mine for many years now, but the past decade. And David's been involved with healthcare ethics much longer than I have, in fact, and was a real pioneer in terms of Nova Scotia's development of healthcare ethics. David has an interesting and eclectic academic background in theology, philosophy, and economics, quite a mix. He's a licensed spiritual care specialist and has worked for many years as a clinician in a wide variety of mental health care settings. He was the coordinator of ethics education for Capital Health Ethics Support for about a decade, just recently left that post, and was intensively engaged in the development and delivery of CHES's innovative ethics education modules. Very involved with that and is still performing those modules for CHES. He's providing ethics resource consultative support to the long-term continuing home care sectors. So this is a kind of a new emerging role. He's been doing it for years, but now it's become more intensive, I would say, David? Yeah, good. And he's also very funny and a good guy. And as you'll see from the images in the slide deck, he's got a great sense of humor. So without further ado, I'll pass it along to David to start the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Gosh, that was easily the best introduction I ever had. I didn't realize I've been involved in ethics longer than Jeff. And so just to clarify that, I started when I was 12. So that's how I got the head start with Jeff. I'm delighted to be here. I'm always eager to talk about ethics, particularly risk and decision making within healthcare, and most recently within long-term care, continuing care, and home care. This is my second time doing telehealth. My first time was with psychogeriatric grounds, and this room is a little different. There's people behind me, and the camera's in front of me. So I'm operating a bit out of my comfort zone here, and humor is sometimes difficult when you're looking at a screen and not necessarily at people. We'll laugh. But yeah, there's a laughing sign here that I'll press from time to time, so that everybody will be able to know when to laugh. I generally like to be more interactive in presentations like this. But what I'll do is I'll work through the slides that I have, and then hopefully we'll have 15 minutes or so at the end. If you have any particular cases or comments or questions related to what it is that I have to share. So a bit of a background. Can everybody see this? Oh, yeah. So the slides have just appeared there now. So as Jeff mentioned, I have been involved with Capital Health Ethics Support for the better part of a decade. And over the last 3 or 4 years, Capital Health has entered into a memorandum of understanding with continuing care and long-term with long-term care. And when that happened, there were more requests from folks in long-term care facilities here in Capital Health to help out with ethics. And so being one of the coordinators, or being the coordinator for ethics education, I was involved in conversations with Capital Health around how we would support folks in long-term care. So initially, it was providing support for ethics committees, helping to develop frameworks, terms of reference, little things like consultation request forms, so that they could get better organized. At about the same time this was happening, accreditation was changing within long-term care. And Accreditation Canada was actually expecting long-term care facilities to have frameworks for ethics, or some kind of mechanism for people to be able to talk about ethics within their community. For staff, residents, volunteers, family members, and any combination of those folks to be able to bring ethical issues forward. And as most of you may know, the government of Nova Scotia has a vision for long-term care, and it's to have every Nova Scotian live in a place that they can call home. And this is an aspirational vision, something that we as a province, we as a community want to aspire to. And so it's a real shift. It's a great shift. It's a very positive place for us to be heading. And one of the things that I believe, this is part of my personal professional bias that will help get there, is that we not only have accessible frameworks, ethics frameworks for us to talk about very difficult cases that we're involved in, but that we know how to operationalize those every day in the workplace with each other in ways that are actually helpful, effective, and relevant. Because I don't know about you, but when I first started, when I was 12, on ethics committees, they met in dimly lit rooms with lots of people gathered around a boardroom, and they used a language like I had never heard before. It was scandalous because every word had at least 13 syllables and 53 letters in it, and I didn't understand any of them. So part of my personal professional bias with respect to ethics and ethics in long-term care is that it's relevant, it's timely, it's effective, and it actually helps people to live and work in a place that they would want to call home. When I think about risk and the right to risk, it really captures well an ethical problem that I have seen many times in long-term care as well as in acute care. And that is, how do we balance individual choice with a duty to protect or a responsibility to reduce risk? And I think this is a problem for all of us. I know as a dad, it's something that I struggle with on a daily basis. An ethical dilemma is when we have competing values. So one value might be that I support the individual choice and the individual autonomy of my daughters, but I would prefer to have them home, safe in bed, at 7:30 at night, just shortly past their 21st birthday, tucked in, reading Harry Potter or one of those nice, great novels. So if they get to choose, they're going to be out past 7:30. If I get to choose, they're tucked in bed at 7:30. And so it's all about how do we manage individual autonomy, how do we manage the ability to be able to choose and to be free to choose and protect those that we may perceive as vulnerable or who really are vulnerable. So that's a bit of a background with respect to this topic, the right to risk. And hopefully some of those comments resonate with some of you. And some of you have probably heard me share this many times before, so please accept it as a review and not me as just being repetitive. So the case. This case has many different specific variations, and I have been involved with some of you on specific cases related to food and nutrition. So the case is, just quickly, during lunch in the dining room, Fred begins to choke on his meal. He's 78 years old. He's a big guy. He's over 6 feet tall. He has a large chest and a big abdomen. And staff have a very difficult time clearing his airway. It is a traumatic event for staff and other residents. And so after his airway is finally cleared and everybody settles down, dietary staff are consulted, and Fred is immediately started on a pureed diet. Later on in the afternoon, his daughter is contacted via phone and notified of the decision to change Fred's diet. Fred is not happy with his new diet and convinces his grandson to sneak him some of his favorite comfort foods. And on a regular basis, staff see evidence of food in Fred's room, and they remind him that he's not only placing himself at risk of choking and even dying, but he's going to subject other staff and residents to potential harms, which is witnessing a traumatic event. And so he's very agreeable when staff present this to him, but it's only a matter of time before he's asking his grandchildren to bring in some more goodies for him. And There's lots of variations on this particular case. Fred sometimes is not competent. Fred sometimes is not capable. Fred sometimes can't feed himself, so he actually needs assistance from staff. But I thought that I would use a more generic case, so hopefully that, with the hope that many of you would be able to connect to this particular case. And we'll come back to it. So this is what Fred's dinner looks like. The white stuff is potatoes. Looks like what I grew up on. The beige stuff is a piece of chicken. I didn't grow up on that. The orange stuff, I'm not exactly sure what that is. In the green, anybody's guess. So part of my objectives here today is to describe the role and the function of rights and values. Because when we think about ethics, there are some distinctions related to rights and values, and it's important to make those distinctions. I want to talk a little bit about our role as healthcare providers in decision making, and then I'm going to share with you what are the 5 ethical aspects of decision making or informed choice. And this is not only specific to long-term care, but any decision making anywhere. And then I want to spend a little bit of time clarifying who gets to decide when I can't decide. So rights and values. Generally, when we use the term rights in ethics, we are talking about laws or charters, societal norms. We can usually point to them as a piece of legislation or a specific act. And some of the common ones are a right to choose, a right to vote, which wasn't afforded to everybody in this country always. A right to work, a right to strike, a right to privacy, freedom of expression, free speech, which my kids don't always appreciate, and I don't always appreciate from them either. A right to associate with whom one pleases, and a right to be safe and secure, particularly from harm, whether that harm be an act of commission, somebody's actually doing something to me, or omission, where somebody's neglected to do something to me. And then I just threw in there the right to live at risk, which really is not a right. I was just trying to tease the issues out a little bit. Generally, there's no common definition of rights. And I want to suggest that if anybody said there was, that they're probably pulling on your leg. And they might have some land in Florida to sell you as well. But generally it has to do with laws and rights. When we use right language, it usually means that we have an obligation or a duty. So if somebody has a right to choose, then we normally have some kind of obligation or duty to allow them to choose. If somebody has a right to safety and security, then we have an obligation and a duty not to physically, verbally harass them or abuse them. I hope that makes sense. Values. The brief distinction with values, and these are 2 definitions that I've been using, not definitions, but just descriptions that I've been using for a while, is that values are generally enduring beliefs. Beliefs can change over time. So for instance, if health is a value of ours, my beliefs about health can change over time. So when I was younger, health for me was as many Big Macs for 99 cents as at McDonald's. And that was part of my belief system. I could eat those things and still be healthy. Now I don't touch them. So my value around health has remained the same, but some of my beliefs may have changed. And so here are some common values that I hear on a regular basis in long-term care. Collaboration, respect, dignity, people come first. And some of you actually have charters of rights or vision statements in your facilities. Some of you practice the Eden philosophy, people come first. Capitol Health has directors that are called directors of people or people services. So we've really seen the change in healthcare, and it's also in long-term care about placing people first. And as we talk a little bit more about who gets to decide and risk, we'll see why, or hopefully it'll become evident why people are coming first more often in long-term facilities and tertiary care. Another common value is that growth is built on trust. Compassion is really important for most of us, empathy, teamwork, and wanting to make a difference in people's lives.